So when I was at Forrester, I was really thinking that AI was going to disrupt three things. First, the way that code is developed and the way that applications are developed. And the second is the way that workflows and automations happen inside companies, in the back office or in the front office, and how automation works. And then a very distant third was, the ability to create cat videos without real cats being involved. So this content generation use case that a lot of people are talking about. And I kind of always thought of those as separate things. There's kind of the coding world, and there's the automation world, workflows, and then and the cat videos. And so, but here comes Creatio, and all of a sudden I'm realizing that this company is disrupting all three of those things in the same platform. So that was really transformational to my research, and also just found it to be a great group of really smart people too. So that's how I ended up here. And there's a lot of talk in the media about ROI, the ROI of AI, and how are companies achieving that. And the other thing that sort of caught my attention was the fact that the practitioners who are actually deploying AI agents in their marketing workflows are seeing that ROI, and it's really clear. So again, just super exciting times. I think we're all living in a time where we're going to all remember what it was like to go to work before there were AI agents, and that's pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, it is really interesting. You said something that, when I think back in my career, used to be the opposite approach we would take in tech, which is a platform that's doing everything at the, in one platform. And I remember even when I was on the client side and I was licensing tech and hiring agencies, the approach we took was, we really want applications that do a specific thing very well. And, our CRM is going to be separate than our marketing database, is going to be separate than how we create content. But we're starting to see that the landscape is so crowded, and that when these applications in tech are all separate, it creates silos. They don't all work well together, and it puts the onus on the company then to connect them. And then if I make an update anywhere, God forbid, then I have to go and make sure I'm maintaining sort of this beast of a technology. Is that a challenge that Creatio saw? And are there other challenges that it's solving so that marketers can work more efficiently and get their arms around really empowering the experience, instead of spending so much time trying to make sure all the things are connected?
Yeah, that's such an awesome example of, old paradigm versus new paradigm. And there's so many things that are transformational that are happening now. And that's why, when I introduce this topic to audiences, if I'm speaking like I am at nocode days right now at this hotel where I'm speaking at a conference, I introduce this as one of the most important and powerful business strategies to emerge in our generation, because there's so many things that when you get down into it, they're not just transforming, the technology, but it's really the way we work and the way AI works with humans and a lot of that. So, what you mentioned about the age-old problem, I guess, or the at least, old era problem of, do I buy one platform that does it all, or do I kind of build the microtech stack, or do I assemble a lot of best of breed solutions and stitch them together, or do I do some kind of hybrid of those two approaches so you can get a little bit of the best of and a little bit of the end-to-end platform? And that's been a struggle for companies for a long time. Do I have one center of the universe, and what is that? Or do I build all of these applications? So that's kind of the old problem. The new problem is really customization or composability. So instead of let's go shopping for a vendor that has everything that I need, and probably either doesn't have everything that I need or has way too much, right? So there's some problem with buying too much technology, and that happens, for example, in industry CRM. So a lot of industries, they buy a horizontal CRM, it has way too many functions and capabilities. They're paying for all of that, even though they don't use them, or they have low adoption of those features. Or they buy the point solution, and the point solution, because it's a smaller company and doesn't have the scale and everything, they don't have enough features. And then to customize that, or to change that, or to right size that for the business is super expensive. You need an army of developers and lots of time and effort to try to get that to work. So enter the world of AI and no code. And when AI and no code come together, you're able to compose the applications. So you can start with either. You can start with the kind of all-in-one approach and kind of scale it back to your needs, and only build the applications that you need within that architecture. Or you can go with the best of breed, and you can compose all of the applications that fit your business model as exactly as you want to do that. And you can do that with a lot less resource and much faster because you can employ programs like citizen development or no-code developers. And a lot of people are calling that sort of the death of software as a service. Software as a service was, I'm going to wait for my software provider to develop a capability, and they have a roadmap and they have priorities, and some things get developed and some things don't get developed. And if you're on the receiving end of that, you kind of have to get what you get. And maybe you're even on the customer advisory board and you have some input into what gets developed and what doesn't get developed if you're a big customer. And that's totally out the door, because now if you don't have it, you just build it yourself, if you want to, on a no-code platform. So it really is disrupting, not only the software as a service market, but this whole idea of how do I right size my technology to fit the use cases that my business needs.
Yeah, what I love about the democratization of coding and allowing marketers to speak an application into existence, it really is not about going around the developers or going around the IT department. It's about moving application creation closer to the point of expertise. And I love this theme of empowering marketers to now have a tool that brings their area of expertise, their skills to life. And, my perspective, it doesn't really take away from the engineers. The engineers are already busy. And if anything, it expedites the value the company is able to deliver. And relevant timing is everything in marketing. So I love this approach, but what have you heard from your customers? Like, what are some of the other challenges or the ahas they're having when they're like, okay, this is why Creatio makes sense for us? And is there any pushback that it's not a Salesforce or not one of the larger platforms that I think companies just feel more comfortable buying?
Yeah, I think you hit on one of the big ones, which is that relationship between the marketing team and the IT team. And, yeah, in the old world, marketing says, I need a dashboard. And so you go to IT and you say, I need a dashboard, please. And, there's lots of pushback. There's lots of questions. What is this dashboard for? And who's going to maintain it? And where's the data going to come from? And who has access to it? And are you the only one who needs this dashboard, or do more people need this dashboard? Let's do some discovery. And those are great questions. And you need to have that kind of tension and those safeguards so that you don't waste resources. But in the new world of no code and AI, IT really does have that choice, right? To say, well, one option would be to, for some level of use cases, democratize or turn that into a self-service program where we say, you want your own dashboard in the CRM? Go ahead. That's a use case that qualifies for that self-service motion. And here we are. If you need any help, we can help you out with that. Or you might decide, well, we still create the ticket and the ticket comes in, but that process totally changes. So now we're going to go sit with that end user and watch them speaking to the AI and have a conversation about what they need, and maybe even read the transcript of the conversation with the AI and try to find out more about what these business users are really trying to achieve with their applications. So all of that is again just a new way of working, and for some organizations, it allows them to free up some of their greater technical resources. So if you have professional developers with lots of experience and lots of skill, you can deploy them on bigger projects that are more end-to-end outcomes and building very complex enterprise level applications that really differentiate your business. And those are high value use cases. And then you can take maybe, let's say, your junior developers or new developers that you're hiring in their first role, and you can put them kind of in the middle of helping out with some of the enterprise level applications and learning and growing, but also helping out with some of the use cases that are a little bit smaller and more core to the business and help those business users. And then you have some level of citizen development going on where there's a center of excellence that's just enabling people to do it themselves. And that's a whole new paradigm that, it's not a change in the number of resources that you have or the way that you're spending your IT budget. It's just, it's not a reduction in your IT budget, rather. But it's a different way to deploy those IT resources so that you maximize the value of the the highly valued resources compared to the things that just keep the business running, but are more rinse and repeat.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to round back on a question I asked halfway. How can enterprises engage with a platform like Creatio if they feel like they're already too steeped in a legacy platform? Like, I feel like a lot of our clients right now in the back of their heads are thinking Do I add this on? Is this a replacement? Is this really built and secure enough for a company of our size if we're a Fortune 100, 500, Fortune 1000 company?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the way that we position that, and this is the way that all technology decision makers are really positioned, is that a lot of those legacy platforms are very entrenched in the business. So that's a reality, is that, those platforms have done a really good job of engrossing themselves in the business and really attaching and becoming critical. And they're really monolithic as well. They're tapped into so many different things that it's really hard to extract some of those things, even if it's useful to the business or beneficial to them. There's definitely some challenges with pulling it out or extracting that, or even making significant changes to it. So what the reality is that you have a choice. You have the choice of either waiting for legacy modernization, because the legacy platforms are modernizing. They're investing millions and millions of dollars in lots of investment in transferring from the legacy architectures over to more modern architectures. And that has a significant cost and is going to take a significant amount of time. So you can wait that out, and they'll get there, eventually over years and years and millions of dollars, they'll end up modernizing, and they'll have that sort of AI native architecture that they built from the ground up. Or you can cut over to the new era sooner. And, there's a real benefit in doing that. For one thing, you're going to get the new capabilities right away. So you don't have to wait years for those capabilities. And you're also going to be in control of some of those changes. So one of the biggest pain points with legacy changes is that when the legacy architecture has to be updated, maybe you don't even see it coming, but sometimes you see it coming. But the amount of change that it creates is very expensive, and it's sort of like whiplash to have to deploy a whole bunch of technical resources to pivot and change. So you're not ripping the whole thing out, but you're definitely experiencing a lot of pain to make some of those modernization changes. If you cut over to the new era, then when those changes happen, you're on a no-code platform with AI native at the core. So, those changes, it doesn't mean you don't have to make any changes or make any pivots, but when things change, if the markets change, if the technology changes or gets updated, it's just much simpler and easier, but it's also more nimble and agile, so you can make the changes quickly without as much resource. And so you're really more in control of how you want to. Whereas on the other hand, you're really not in control at all. One possibility also is to have a co-deployment. So, a lot of companies will deploy Creatio as an engagement layer or as the orchestration layer in the ecosystem of technologies, and then connect everything together, because that's sort of what the legacy platforms are doing. They're having to layer things on top of other things. So they layer the AI on top, and then they charge for it, and then they layer some sort of a no-code platform or a modern database. They connect them together, and they're all kind of different pieces of the puzzle that are all bolted together. And they're going to eventually slowly migrate those together or rebuild them so that it's sort of unified. And so you can kind of do the same thing by just, taking the Creatio platform as the orchestration layer and doing your own connecting, and then slowly migrate things over. And that way you have more control. And a lot of times you can reduce the license fees on some of those legacy platforms while you're doing that, to kind of right-size the budget for that and make it less painful than, dare I say, a rip and replace scenario where people have to rip out the old and put in the new, and that's very disruptive.